So I wish us luck today because, the sermon never finished in my head. So I may be adding things which will offer a different layer of preparation. I have things on paper, but it continues to grow and shift and change in my brain, which is such a fun place to be. So, and then my favorite gift giving book, Santa, brought me a sneak peek of a part of the Anabaptist Bible. And part of what I'm preaching is in it, so I had to bring that up too, and maybe I'll reference that. I digest information very quickly, as you see, so we will see how that goes as well. The message this week, I don't think I found it. I think it found me through a really weird week. My wife went out of town to a drone conference in Vegas. I did not go because Vegas gives me migraines. The casino, she was staying on Strip, and the casinos and the sheer number of people, I am not on a high enough milligram of anything to support me in that endeavor. And so I chose self-care and I stayed home. Then I got excited. I was like, yes, I'll be home by myself. I'll do what I want. Part of my neurodivergence is I hate to be perceived. And so I work from home, so there's always these moments, what you doing, babe? How's it going, babe? And it's very sweet, and I wouldn't trade it for the world until those days when I want to. And I was like, that is a whole week. I get to wake up and I get to have coffee for breakfast and no one telling me I should have more, yada, yada, eat some toast. I can watch my MASH in the bed on my laptop for hours on end. No one's telling me I should get some rest. I dropped her off at the airport, and as I was driving home, I cranked the music up. And within 2 hours of getting home, I was wandering around like a lost sheep because my wife was gone and I was all by myself. And so it was a lot, and I am a very weepy person. And so I cried that night because I was all by myself. So then the next morning comes, and I'm like, okay, why are you crying? Like, don't tell anybody you cry. When she asks you how you're doing, say fine, so she's not worried about you. So practice fine. How you doing? Fine. No, that's too high. How you doing? Oh, I'm good. Oh, that sounds dismal. So I practiced that morning so that my fine could feel not too upbeat, but yet not too sad. And then I got an email. I was supposed to write a piece for a Anabaptist journal, and I didn't do it. I know, gasp. Oh, I was just too overwhelmed, and the imposter syndrome, and who am I to write this? And she made the mistake of sending me who has written before, and I was like, I'm not writing nothing. And so I just kind of willfully let the deadline pass and pass and pass. And so we communicated. She was like, "We'll catch you next time." I cried. I was so disappointed in myself. I was so disappointed in the parts of me that I can't control, some of that ADHD and autism, some of that lack of executive function, some of that difficulty planning and getting things done without the adrenaline of being the last minute so I can get the dopamine to do the thing. And I cried. The next morning I got up and she had sent me an email saying they had room for one piece and they would not publish without mine. I was like, oh my gosh, why? Is it because I'm Black? Like, why are you doing this for me? But that's how much she cared. So my first published piece as a Mennonite pastor will be Envision, the theology journal issue on disability. And then I cried again. So I have cried a River Jordan this week. The news has been horrible. The Ghanaian runner from the Olympics set on fire by her boyfriend. The school shooting and the 4 people that lost their lives. It seemed like every time I turned on the TV, anytime I went to do anything, I would weep. But the thing that I realized in that was that in that weeping, I was embarrassed. There was part of me that felt so silly crying about so many things in such a short period of time. And I just felt like, what could be wrong? And this scripture continued to play, even as I was crying, it'll be okay, tomorrow will come. It'll be okay, tomorrow would come. And I almost was telling myself, don't even address whatever emotional turmoil you are in that has these tears at the top of your psyche. Just get to the morning. Just get to the morning. So then I watched this Bee Gees documentary. It was, it was so good. You should watch it. It's on Max. And even if you just sign up with an email address and just keep it for 7 days and watch it, it was fantastic. I had no idea of the Bee Gees, and from Australia to Saturday Night Fever. Like, I had no idea how many times they had to reinvent themselves and how much suffering they endured and all of those things that went on. Like, How Deep Is Your Love is by Jam. I sing it in all the keys, but I did not know how much it would mean to us. So I watched that. Ingrid does this thing where she plays, after we watch a documentary about music, she'll play like a playlist. And so we have this modified karaoke. And after the first like 6 songs will play, it starts like picking up other artists. And so one of the songs that had came on was one of my faves. The buildup is so haunting and so melancholy. It makes me so happy. It is In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. I would sing it for you, but you do not want that. No way. But you know how it goes. Like, he's like, I can hear you calling in the air tonight. And then he does the, oh, Lord. That's my favorite. And then it has that amazing drum buildup, which is Phil Collins, too, playing that drum. I am not. They better YouTube it today. I can't, you can do, let me bring you the mic. So the Phil Collins, he's like, I can hear it calling in the air tonight. Oh, Lord. Not Lord, Lord. I'm going to talk to you about that after church. You're welcome. We're going to have a church meeting this evening. And hearing that call in the air of the night, I was like, oh my gosh, that is what I be getting. I get grief calls in the air of the night. It's almost like life has this way of holding on to the breakdown until the sun sets. When everything gets quiet, when the world is slowed down, when I am my most vulnerable, and when I'm really just trying to watch the new anime that I started watching, Attack of the Titans, it's crazy, I begin to break down. I don't know if it's because in the dark, we face these things that we can't avoid during the day. See, during the day, we can busy ourselves with our life, our kids, our cats, with the news cycle, with dinner, all of those things. But when everything quiets down, now you're left with a reflection of things that are now facing you. It's under the cover of night that we find time to wrestle with the things that we have tried so hard to avoid. We've all had those nights, the ones where everything seems to press down at once. The weight of the world is unbearable. The darkness seems like it will not lift. You find yourself in the company of your own grief, your own pain, your own fears, and your own sorrows. But yet here in this psalm, Psalm 30, there's a declaration that after that night, joy will come in the morning. In this little sneak peek book that I have, it says so it's really cool. So it's all of the Psalms, and on the side, it has community notes and theologian inputs, all from what will be featured in the Anabaptist Community Bible. This is not a sponsored post, but don't forget to order your copies of the Anabaptist Community Bible. I'm not getting paid for this promotion. It says, although the psalm moves quickly from thanksgiving to despair, a long night of wrestling with one's soul does not pass so quickly. Does God truly hide from us, or do we just fail to see God's presence? I ask myself, why do we rush past that night? In our culture, crying and weeping is seen as weakness, something to be avoided at all costs. I hate gendered things, but it makes me think of like this idea of toxic masculinity. Or if we ungender it, how we spiritually bypass things. Saying that if you cry or show weakness, then or show vulnerability, it is a failure. Something has happened, you've done something wrong. Or when we tell people, oh, God has a plan. Everything happens for a reason. Just trust God, everything will be fine. These phrases, though they are often really well-meaning, can silence our need to sit with the grief or the pain or the problem of the night. What I'm asking us to consider today is that that night of weeping that the psalmist describes is not giving up or a weakness, nor is it a mistake. It's not a lack of faith or a sign of your foolishness. It is a part of that healing process. Moving through grief and finding ourselves on the other side is holy. We've been conditioned to think that darkness is something to fear, something that brings bad things. We are taught to run from it, to hide from it, to put up 37 feet of LED lights to avoid it. But it's not something to keep hidden, but sometimes we don't know how to engage with it. I think I've shared before, in some cultures, they hire wailers for funerals. Sometimes it's hard for the family to be able to get to a place where they can express that grief that maybe is residing in the pit of their stomach. And these people are hired to come to the funeral and cry and wail. It opens and gives voice to collective sorrow. It creates a space where lament is seen as necessary and a sacred act. In my little gift I got today, it says that every lament is also a love song. Lament is demonstrative, an act of converting sorrow into an outward expression. The presence of wailers, or our ability to sit in that weeping of the night, is not something that is simply permitted or that we give ourselves permission to do. I encourage it. I encourage that act that honors the depth of loss, of hardship, of pain, of hopelessness, or whatever it is that you are experiencing. It's not just about the emotional piece. Darkness has been something attributed with bad for a very long time, and I know it because I live in a dark body. Think about how we've historically viewed and used darkness. There was a study many years ago where children were given black and white doll babies. They were asked what dolls were good and which ones were bad. Both black children and white children alike chose the white babies as the good babies, while the dark babies were considered bad or inherently negative. That treatment of dark and light, black and white, sometimes sadness and joy, has been baked in and runs deep in our collective consciousness. We carry it into how we exist in the dark. But what if today we decided to look at darkness differently? What if the night is not something to rush, but something to sit, to embrace as part of the process? Psalm 30 says, weeping may last for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And sometimes that weeping feels endless. But one thing I love about it is that the psalmist doesn't tell us we can skip it. Sorrow and hardship and negative things are coming whether you like it or not. God's promise is never that we won't experience those things. Matter of fact, there are texts that say we will experience them threefold: the test, the trial, and the tribulation. The weeping is part of that story. It's in the night that we confront those things so that we can move forward with joy. One of my favorite books, it might be a little too to read in book club, but it's called Their Eyes Were Watching God. It is by Zora Neale Hurston. In one of the chapters, the main character, Janie, and T-Cake, who was this fine man that she was in love with from the other side of the tracks, they were facing a hurricane, a literal storm in the night that was threatening to overtake them. Hurston writes, "The wind came back with triple fury and put out the lights for the last time. They sat in company with the others in shanties, their eyes straining against crude walls and their souls asking if God meant to measure their puny might against his. They seemed to be staring in the dark, but their eyes were watching God." Janie, T-Cake, Motorboat, they all sat in the darkness, unable to control the raging storm outside. But it wasn't just a physical storm that they were up against. They were dealing with inner turmoil, inner struggles, the emotional labor, weight, and burden of being in crisis. They couldn't stop the hurricane, but they could choose where they put their focus. Their eyes, though straining in the darkness, were on God. What Hurston captures is the tension that we all have to live with. The reality that we can't avoid darkness, but in the midst of it, we can look for where our help comes from. We can let ourselves weep, knowing that the night won't last forever, but also knowing we can't rush morning to come. In Psalm 56:8, it says, "You have kept count of my tossings." One translation says misery. That's the one I like. "You have kept count of my misery. You put my tears in a bottle. Are they not on your record?" I like when they get kind of testy with God, because sometimes I be testy too, and I just know I'm in good company. The ask there is, you've seen what I've been through. You have tracked my tears. You have treasured this aspect of my human experience. It is on your record. Now, what are you going to do to help me? This verse reminds us that God does not dismiss those moments, that God is not spiritually bypassing you. That though your friend may say, well, it's all according to God's plan, that is not what God is saying. It reminds me of the play. It's not a play, it's like a made-for-TV thing. It was called Crybaby. And Johnny Depp was in it. He would collect, the girl, he was in jail, and she would collect his tears and then drink them. I know that's weird, but that's just what I was thinking about. But that collection, this idea that it's so precious, that it is stored, it is kept, it is counted because it matters. Every tear is held with care, kept in the divine record, testament to our pain and a marker of our healing. Our grief is sacred to God, even in our most vulnerable moments, even when we lash out, even when we question. And even when it's so hard, we turn our back. In all of it, we are fully loved and we are fully known. Our tears collected and remembered, becoming part of our restoration and renewal. There's something beautiful when you allow yourself to feel, to cry, to grieve, to process. Even when your instinct or upbringing tells you that you better hold it together, that you need to put on a brave face, that you need to mask up and keep moving forward. Our text today offers us an invitation to nuance, that we can hold two things at once. We can anticipate joy while allowing ourselves the space to weep. The night is not an inconvenience. It's an aspect of the journey. When we find ourselves in the middle of this pain and default to let's just get through it, let's get to joy. Where is joy? I'm on my way. We have to remind ourselves that we are missing out on an appointment because God is lingering, waiting for you in that night. It's not easy. Matter of fact, it's kind of countercultural. But my God, is it holy? Verse 5 promises that joy will come in the morning, but it sure don't say that the night will hurry to get you there. Honey, there is no shortcut. But the reality is, we don't need one. The weeping, the sitting in the pain, the grief, all of that prepares us for the morning. The morning prepares us for the morning, if you get it. But you gotta let yourself sit there. What happens when we make space for the night? What happens when we let darkness do her perfect work? One thing we'll find is that God meets us there. Just as Janie and Tea Cake found God in the midst of a storm, we find that God is not absent in ours. You may not understand everything in the moment, and you may just be as uncertain and not have all the answers. But there is no need to rush. You are human, having a human experience. And you can't invalidate or dismiss that, not even for yourself. We can hold the night, and in doing so, we allow God to work in ways that rushing never could. The joy that comes in the morning when you let yourself mourn is sweeter when you've allowed yourself to feel those things through the night. So what do we do next time? When you hear that call in the air of the night, my prayer is that we allow ourselves to do something different. That we allow ourselves to answer that call to our inward parts, to answer the call of our fear, of our sadness, of our helplessness or hopelessness. Decide to not treat your feelings and emotions, your pain and sorrows as an interruption to joy, but rather a roadway to it. Let the night unfold, knowing that when the dawn does come, it will bring with it a joy that's not forced or fabricated, a joy that is deeper and more profound because we've taken the time to feel and to trust that even in our darkest moments, in the quiet of the night, in the depth of our tears, that God is present, that the testimony is building, and God is steadily drumming the sacred rhythm of your life. May it be so.